Welcome back to Zarila HOA Stories. Drop your country or city name in comments. Chapter 1. The Quiet Ranch Life. The sun slid over the horizon, spilling gold across the pasture. My ranch had always woken with the same rhythm. Cattle shifting in the grass, horses nudging at the fence for hay, the creak of the old windmill turning slow in the morning air. It was peace. My kind of peace. I poured coffee into my dented tin cup, leaned against the porch rail, and watched the mist burn away. Every day felt the same, and that sameness was my treasure. My land had been in my family for decades. Every acre, every fence post, every hoof print on the dirt was a piece of us. But that morning, something didn't feel right. Out by the east pasture, near the tree line, a streak of red caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a wildflower or maybe a soda can some hunter had tossed. But when I saddled my horse and rode out, the truth landed like a punch to the gut. It wasn't a flower. It was a stake. A wooden marker with red plastic tied to the top, flapping in the wind like a warning flag. I frowned, slid off my horse, and yanked it from the dirt. At the bottom of the stake was a spray-painted number, Lot 47. My grip tightened. Lot? What damn lot? I muttered. A second stake stuck out a few yards farther. Then another, a line of them stretching straight across my land, as if someone had drawn a knife through the earth. That wasn't just a mistake. That was a plan. I pulled the brim of my hat lower, trying to choke down the rising anger. No one had asked me for permission. No one had called. And here I was, standing in the middle of my pasture, holding proof that someone thought they owned the place. Hoofbeats sounded from the road. I turned and saw a white truck parked at the edge of my property. A man in a neon vest climbed down, clipboard in hand. He spotted me, waved casually, and shouted across the field. "Morning. Just doing a survey. Won't be long." I didn't wave back. I walked toward him, slow, deliberate, boots crunching on the dirt. "This is private property," I said flatly. The man smiled like he hadn't heard a word. "Oh, I know. Don't worry, sir. Just marking the line for the pipeline. HOA project. Big upgrade for the neighborhood down south." Pipeline. My jaw tightened. "You got papers that say you can be here?" He chuckled, tapping the clipboard. "All in order. I'm just the guy with the tape measure. No harm done." I stepped closer, eyes locked on his. "Pull your stakes." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Pull. Every stake." For a second, he seemed unsure, but then that smug grin returned. "Sir, you want to take this up with the association. They got permits. I'm just doing my job." I leaned in, my voice dropping low. "Your job's about to end if you don't get off my land." His face stiffened. He glanced at me, then at the open pasture, then back at his truck. Without a word, he turned, tossed his clipboard on the seat, and drove away in a spray of dust. The stakes remained, fluttering in the breeze. I walked the line, pulling them out one by one. My hands shook, not from fear, but from fury. They thought they could just walk in and carve up my ranch like it was theirs. They thought I'd roll over. By the time I reached the end of the markers, I had a bundle of stakes under my arm and sweat dripping down my neck. I threw them into the dirt pile by the barn, chest heaving. But something told me it wasn't over. People like that don't back down just because you tell them no. If anything, they'd be back, with more trucks, more men, and more arrogance. The windmill groaned as the blades turned slow. Cattle lowed in the distance, uneasy. I stood there, staring at the horizon, and the thought cut through me like steel. This was just the beginning. Chapter 2. The Unwanted Intrusion. 3 days passed. I kept working the ranch, fixing fences, feeding stock, but my eyes never left the east pasture. I half expected that surveyor to sneak back in the night. The morning of the 4th day, the silence broke. Engines, heavy ones. The low growl of diesel trucks rolled across the hills. I set down my coffee, grabbed my hat, and stepped onto the porch. 2 flatbeds pulled up by the road, followed by a backhoe and a white SUV. Bright orange vests spilled out like ants, carrying clipboards, toolboxes, and lengths of pipe. They didn't hesitate. They didn't knock. They marched straight onto my land. I clenched my jaw, walked down the porch steps, and strode into the pasture. "Hey," my voice carried across the field. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The man in the SUV, tall with slick-back hair and sunglasses, turned. He didn't smile. He just lifted his chin. "Mr. Carson?" he asked, voice smooth. "That's me," I said. "I'm Robert Hayes, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. We have authorization to begin pipeline construction. This won't take long." I barked a bitter laugh. "Authorization? From who?" "Not me. And this is my land." He lifted a folder from under his arm and flipped it open, waving a paper. "County permits. Right-of-way agreement." I snatched the page from his hand and scanned it. Legal words, stamps, signatures. But not mine. My name wasn't anywhere. "You forged this," I growled. "Careful, Mr. Carson," Hayes said smoothly. "The association plays by the law. You may not like it, but progress doesn't wait." Behind him, the backhoe roared to life. The bucket dug into the soil, ripping a gash straight across the pasture. "No!" I charged forward, waving my arms. "Shut it down. Get that machine out of here." One of the workers shouted over the noise, "Sir, you'll need to step back. Safety protocol. Safety." My boots dug into the dirt as I stood in front of the machine. "The only thing in danger here is your damn pipeline if you don't turn it off." The backhoe paused, its operator hesitant. Hayes raised a hand. The engine sputtered quiet. He walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but his smirk was clear. "Listen, Mr. Carson, I get it. You're proud of your ranch. But this project is bigger than you. Hundreds of families rely on this water. You don't want to be the man who stood in the way of progress." I stepped right into his space. "You put another shovel in this ground, and you'll see exactly how far I'll go to protect what's mine." Silence hung thick. The workers shifted uncomfortably. The wind rattled the plastic survey flags still stuck in the dirt. Hayes tilted his head. "You'll regret this. Trust me." I didn't blink. "Not as much as you will." His jaw tightened. He turned to his crew. "Pack it up. For now." The engine's cut off. Men grumbled, coiling hoses, loading tools back onto the trucks. Hayes climbed into his SUV without another word, slamming the door. The convoy rolled off in a haze of dust, leaving raw gouges in the earth and silence heavier than before. I stood alone in the torn pasture, fists trembling. My cattle pressed against the far fence, restless from the noise. I bent down, touched the ripped soil, and swore under my breath. They'd be back. Hayes wasn't the type to walk away. He was testing me, sizing me up. Next time, he'd come harder, stronger, maybe even with the law at his side. I looked toward the hills in the distance. My land stretched far, but beyond it, I remembered something. Streams, springs, the water that fed this valley. And an idea crept into my mind. Dangerous, tempting. If they wanted to run a pipeline through my ranch, maybe I could cut it off at the root. But first, I had to find out where that root really was. I stood, wiped my dusty hands on my jeans, and whispered to myself, "Let's see how thirsty they get." Chapter 3. The First Confrontation. The morning air carried a strange hum. At first, I thought it was the wind through the trees, but as I walked out onto the porch, the sound thickened, metal grinding, engines revving. I froze. Past the eastern fence line, the ground trembled. Dust clouds rose like smoke. Machines, trucks, and men. They were back. I grabbed my hat, tugged it low, and marched toward the pasture. With every step, the noise grew louder. The clank of chains, the shout of voices, the thud of steel boots hitting dirt. By the time I reached the field, they were everywhere. Bright orange vests swarmed the pasture. A backhoe was already digging, its bucket biting into my soil, carving a raw trench across the grass. Men carried long pipes, stacking them like bones beside the cut. And in the middle of it all, cool as a shadow, stood Robert Hayes. His sunglasses glinted in the sun, his arms folded, watching his men strip my land. "Stop!" I roared. My voice cracked through the racket. Some heads turned. Most didn't. The backhoe roared louder. "Shut it down." I ran forward, shoving past two workers. "This is my land." Hayes turned at last. Calm, almost amused. "Mr. Carson, good morning. You don't belong here." He spread his arms, gesturing in the chaos. "We have every right. County approval. The pipeline is happening. I jabbed a finger at the trench. Not here. Not across my ranch. One of the workers muttered, "Boss, he's in the way." Hayes raised a hand, and the machine slowed to a stop. The pasture fell quiet except for the idle rumble of engines. He stepped closer, his polished shoes sinking into my dirt. His voice was smooth, but sharp beneath the calm. "You're one man, Carson. One man clinging to an old fence line while progress marches forward. This project feeds homes, lawns, pools, families. You can't stand in the way of that." "I don't care about their lawns," I spat. "I care about my land. And you don't touch an inch without my say." Hayes tilted his head, studying me like a specimen. "Do you really think you can stop us?" I squared my shoulders. "Try me." The silence stretched. Workers shifted uneasily. Even the cattle pressed against the far fence, restless from the noise. Hayes' smirk deepened. "You'll regret this. The association doesn't lose." I stepped closer, voice low. "Neither do I." For the first time, a flicker crossed his face, just for a heartbeat, but then it was gone. He turned sharply. "Load up. We're done here for now." Engines cut. Tools clanged. Men muttered curses under their breath as they dragged equipment back onto the trucks. Dust hung heavy in the air as the convoy pulled out, leaving raw gouges in the soil behind them. I stood alone in the pasture, chest heaving. My hands trembled, not from fear but from rage. I knelt at the trench, scooping a handful of the torn earth. The dirt crumbled through my fingers. My land, my blood, and they thought they could carve it up like a shortcut, not while I breathed. But Hayes wasn't bluffing. He'd be back, stronger, with more men, more machines, maybe even deputies on his side. He thought time and money would grind me down. I stood, staring past the fence, past the hills in the distance. Somewhere out there, water fed this valley. Their lifeline, their treasure. And if I could find where it started, I could end this fight before it even began. The thought rooted itself in me, cold and sharp. A seed of revenge. I turned back to the ranch, muttering under my breath. They think they're digging through my land, but they've got no idea what I'm about to dig into. Chapter 4. The pipeline appears. The morning started with the sound of steel. Clangs, rattles, and the grinding roar of machines. I shot out of bed, pulled on my boots, and stepped onto the porch. And there it was. A convoy of trucks and crews had invaded my east pasture. The sun glinted off coils of shiny metal pipe stacked high in their beds. Backhoes dug trenches, tearing through my soil like it was paper. Men shouted, laughed, smoked cigarettes while they worked. They weren't sneaking anymore. They were here to take. I stormed toward them, fist tight, heart hammering in my chest. "Stop!" I shouted. "Get off my land!" No one stopped. The machines roared louder. I caught sight of Robert Hayes standing near the trench, hands on his hips, sunglasses reflecting the chaos. He looked calm, smug, like a man watching his plan fall neatly into place. I shoved past two workers and stood in front of him. "You're trespassing." Hayes didn't blink. "We have permits." "You don't have me." His smirk deepened. "You're one man, Mr. Carson. We're a community. A community with resources, lawyers, and time. You can't win this fight." My voice cut sharp. "This isn't a fight you want." Behind us, the backhoe's bucket lowered, dumping dirt over the pipe with a thunderous thud. A clean silver line disappeared beneath my ranch. Hayes gestured toward it. "See? Progress. You'll hardly notice it when we're done." I stepped forward, chest to chest. My cattle notice. My soil notices. And I sure as hell notice. One of the workers called out, "Boss, we're behind schedule. Need to push faster." Hayes gave a casual nod. Then he leaned closer to me. His voice dropped, smooth and sharp as a blade. "You can't stop water, Carson. It always finds a way." I locked eyes with him. "Then I'll find where it begins." For the first time, his smirk twitched. Just a flicker. Then it was back, smug as ever. He stepped away, leaving me standing alone as his men buried the steel deeper and deeper into my land. I turned, stormed back to the barn, and slammed the door behind me. My hands shook as I threw tools across the bench. Rage burned hot, but underneath it was something colder, sharper. They thought I was powerless. They thought I'd sit on my porch and watch them dig. But Hayes had slipped. He told me more than he meant to. You can't stop water, he said. No, but you could choke it at the source. That night, long after the trucks were gone and the men had disappeared back to their neat little houses, I saddled my horse and rode toward the hills. The moon cast silver over the land, the trails quiet except for the soft crunch of hoofs. Up there, in the dark, I knew there were springs. Old ones, some feeding my land, others feeding theirs. The HOA pipeline had to be tied to one of them. If I found it, I could hold their whole world in my hands. The thought steadied me. The rage cooled, replaced with something colder. A plan. I stopped at the ridge, staring down at the faint shimmer of their half-built pipeline stretching across my pasture like a scar. My fists clenched on the reins. They started a war, I whispered. Now they'll see how it ends. Chapter 5. The Trail of Pipes. The mornings on the ranch used to be quiet. Roosters crowing, the wind bending through mesquite trees, cattle shuffling along the fence lines. Not anymore. Now it was the sound of machines. Diesel engines. The bite of metal teeth ripping into soil. Every day the HOA's crew pushed further, their trench cutting across the land like a scar. I stood by the fence with my coffee, watching their bulldozer chew through the earth. Dust rose in thick clouds. Men shouted over the noise, laying pipe sections like they were building a new kingdom. My neighbor, Mark, drove up in his pickup, gravel spitting under his tires. He leaned out the window. You gonna let this keep going? I shook my head. They're not stopping. Not unless I make them. Mark frowned. Saw one of their engineers at the gas station last night. Said they've already got a source lined up. Some steady flow out in the hills. The words hit me like a kick. Out in the hills. Yep. Said once that line's done, they'll pump it straight to their fancy subdivision. Green lawns all year, no matter the drought. I slammed my coffee cup down on the fence post. The coffee splashed dark across the wood. They're pulling water from this land, I growled. Mark glanced at the crew and lowered his voice. You need proof. Find out where it's coming from. Otherwise, Hayes will keep Logan in your face. He was right. Without proof, without knowing their supply, I couldn't fight back. That night, I saddled up just after sunset. The sky burned orange, then dimmed to purple, then black. I followed the trench line, a fresh scar running out past my ranch, past the barbed wire borders, into the rocky hills. The deeper I rode, the quieter it became. No engines, no men, just the scrape of my horse's hooves and the low call of an owl. The trench glowed pale in the moonlight, twisting through brush and stone. Every so often I stopped, crouched, and touched the dirt. Fresh, still damp from the machines. They've been working fast, desperate to finish before anyone asked too many questions. At one bend, I spotted something half-buried. I pulled it free, a flagged wooden stake marked with red paint. Letters scrawled across it. Line A source. My throat went dry. Source. They weren't just digging blindly. They already knew where this pipeline ended. I stuffed the stake into my saddlebag and pressed on. Hours passed. The hills grew steeper, jagged rocks jutting like broken teeth. My horse slowed, ears twitching at the sound of running water somewhere far ahead. The trench narrowed into the canyon, winding upward. I dismounted, tying the reins to a cedar. From here the ground was too rough to ride. I walked, boots scraping on gravel, eyes on the trench. Then I saw it. Plastic piping already set, half covered in dirt, running uphill toward the sound of water. They weren't just planning this. They were already drawing it in. Anger burned hot in my chest. They had cut through my ranch, stolen my ground, and now they were reaching for the last thing that mattered, the water itself. I climbed further. The air cooled. The sound of rushing grew louder, echoing off the canyon walls. My pulse quickened. Finally, I crested a ridge. Below, moonlight shimmered off something that glistened and moved. A dark ribbon twisting down the canyon floor. Water. A hidden stream tucked away in the rocks. I crouched low, staring down at it, heart hammering. So this was it. The lifeblood they were chasing. But I couldn't move closer. Not yet. A figure shifted in the shadows near the stream. Someone was there, watching, guarding. I ducked behind a boulder, holding my breath. The man carried a shovel over his shoulder, his lantern swinging in the dark. He paused, listening like he heard me. Then he turned, walking deeper toward the water, and vanished. My jaw clenched. Whoever he was, he knew this source. And if I wanted to stop the HOA, I had to know it too. The canyon wind whispered cold against my skin as I stayed hidden, waiting, heart pounding. Tomorrow I would come back. Tomorrow I would see the truth. Chapter 6. The Discovery. The hills rose dark against the evening sky, their ridges cutting sharp across the fading light. I had been riding all day, following the thin line of flag markers and shallow cuts where the HOA crews had surveyed their path. Each bend led me closer to the truth. By dusk, the markers led me up a narrow canyon. The air cooled, and I could hear the faint rush of water, steady, hidden among the rocks. I slid off my horse, tied the reins to a mesquite tree, and followed the sound on foot. My boots crunched on gravel, my breath slow and heavy. The noise grew louder, the sound of life itself, until I rounded a boulder and froze. There it was, a spring. Clear water bubbled up from the ground, spilling over smooth stones, gathering into a shallow pool before trickling down the canyon in silver ribbons. Pipes already tapped the stream, plastic lines running downhill toward the HOA's shiny trench. I knelt by the pool, scooping the cold water into my hands. It slipped through my fingers fast, unstoppable. My reflection stared back, worn, weathered, angry. "This is it," I whispered. "Their lifeline." Behind me, gravel shifted. I spun, hand on the knife at my belt. A man in overalls stepped from the shadows, carrying a shovel over his shoulder. His hair was gray, his face lined like dry earth. "Evening," he said simply. I stayed tense. "You the one running this?" He shook his head. "Not anymore. Used to own this spring. My land. Sold most of it years back. County still lets me water the cattle, but the rest, well, it's up for grabs now." My chest tightened. "Up for grabs." He nodded. "Whole 40 acres. Spring included. Owners in town. Can't keep it. Taxes too high. Word is he's looking to unload quick." I swallowed hard. My mind raced. The HOA had staked everything on this water, carving pipelines through my soil, betting on a supply they didn't even own. And now I knew it was for sale. "How much?" I asked. The old man shrugged. "Not cheap, but less than what that HOA spends on fountains and lawyers." I stood in silence, staring at the water spilling endlessly from the earth. My anger cooled into something harder, sharper, a plan forming clear as daylight. If I bought this spring, every drop of their water would pass through my hands. Their lawns, their pools, their shiny, smug lives. All of it. Mine to grant or deny. The old man watched me, eyes narrowing. "You thinking about it?" "I'm not thinking," I said. "I'm doing it." He gave a slow nod, like he'd seen men make choices like this before. Choices that change things forever. I rose, dusted off my jeans, and gave one last look at the bubbling spring. The sound of the water echoed in the canyon, soft and endless. But in my head, all I heard were the dry pipes, the sputtering faucets, the angry voices of an HOA choking on their own arrogance. I turned back toward my horse. "If Hayes thinks he's got me cornered," I muttered, "he's about to find out who really owns his world." The horse snorted, stamping at the dirt, ready to move. I swung into the saddle, heart pounding. Tomorrow I'd ride into town. Tomorrow I'd meet the owner. Tomorrow I'd decide their future. And when the deal was done, Hayes would come crawling. The night wind whistled through the canyon as I rode down, the spring gurgling behind me like a secret waiting to be unleashed. Chapter 7. The Deal on the Table. Morning sunlight broke hard across the town's main street. Dust swirled under my boots as I tied my horse outside the old brick courthouse and crossed toward the real estate office. The wooden sign creaked overhead, letters faded. Whitmore and Sons, Land and Titles. Inside, the air smelled of paper, ink, and stale coffee. A man in a pressed shirt sat behind the counter, flipping through folders. He looked up with tired eyes. "You hear about property?" I nodded. 40 acres, up in the hills. With the spring, his eyebrows lifted. "Word travels fast." I leaned on the counter. Who owns it? Belongs to a fellow named Reeves. Lost his wife last winter. Land's too much for him now. Taxes piled up. He's looking to sell quick. Where can I find him? The man pointed toward the back. Second office on the left. I walked down the narrow hallway, boots echoing. At the door, I knocked once, then stepped inside. An older man sat at a desk, shoulders slumped, papers spread before him. His hands trembled slightly as he signed something. Then he looked up. You here for the land? His voice was rough, tired. Yes. His eyes narrowed. What's your angle? Everyone wants that spring. You the HOA. My jaw tightened. No. They cut a trench through my ranch. Without a skin. Without paying. I'm not them. I want the land to protect it. He studied me for a long moment, then leaned back. Protect it, huh? Funny. Last week, Hayes from the HOA came in here, offered me cash on the spot. Promised more if I held off for a month. The name made my blood run hot. Hayes. Yeah, Reeves said. Smooth talker. But something about him stinks. Reminds me of bankers who smile while they take your home. I leaned forward. How much are you asking? He slid a sheet across the desk. Numbers stared up at me. More than I had in my account. More than the ranch had cleared in years. That's too high, I said. It's fair, Reeves replied. That spring is the only steady water for 20 miles. Whoever owns it controls half the valley. You think the HOA doesn't know that? I clenched my fists. He was right, but I couldn't walk away. What if I give you half now? I said slowly, and the rest in 6 months. He shook his head. Can't do it. County wants the taxes cleared. I need cash. Whole sum. The door creaked. Footsteps echoed in the hall. Reeves glanced past me, his face tightening. I turned. Hayes stood there. Slick suit. Clean shave. That smirk I hated. Well, he drawled. I thought I might find you sniffing around, cowboy. My blood surged. You've got nerve showing up here. He ignored me, walking straight to Reeves' desk. Mr. Reeves, I told you, I'll pay in full. No installments. No promises. Cash. He tossed a thick envelope onto the desk. It landed heavy, the kind of sound money makes when it changes everything. Reeves stared at it. His hand shook. I stepped forward. Don't take it. You know what they'll do. They'll drain that spring dry. Sell the water back to us piece by piece. Hayes chuckled. And you'll do what? Ride your horse up there and guard the water with a shotgun? Be serious. I represent stability, community, growth. This valley needs me, not some stubborn rancher. Reeves' eyes darted between us. Sweat beaded on his forehead. I just want out. I need the money. Then sell it to me, I said. Not him. I'll pay. I'll find a way. Hayes leaned closer. His voice dropped, venomous. You can't afford it. Don't embarrass yourself. The air grew thick. I could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, Reeves shoved back from the desk. I need one night. One night to think. Come back tomorrow. Both of you. Hayes smiled thin. Fine by me. I glared at him as he walked past, brushing my shoulder with deliberate arrogance. At the door, he turned. Tomorrow, rancher, we'll see who really owns this valley. When the door shut, silence fell heavy. Reeves sagged in his chair, rubbing his temples. I don't like either of you fighting like this, he muttered. But one way or another, by tomorrow, that spring will have a new master. I stepped outside into the blinding sun, fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. Tomorrow, one day to find enough money, one day to stop Hayes from chaining this valley to his pipeline. And I had no idea how. Chapter 8. Racing the Clock. The sun dipped low over the valley, painting the land in blood-orange light. I rode back to the ranch with Hayes's smirk burning in my mind. By tomorrow morning, Reeves would choose. Either I found the money, or the HOA owned the spring. I slammed open the barn door and started pacing. My dog, Rusty, followed me, tail low, sensing the storm inside me. Think, I muttered. Think. I pulled out my ledger, the numbers cold and merciless. Cattle sales last season hadn't been strong. Fences needed fixing. Equipment needed repairs. The ranch was already stretched thin. I grabbed the phone, dial mark. He picked up on the second ring. You sound like hell, he said. I need money. By tomorrow. He went quiet. How much? I told him the figure. The silence on the line grew heavier. That's steep, he said finally. Too steep for me. But he hesitated. Maybe there's a way. What way? You've still got that old combine out back? The one you never use. Yeah. Haul it to Jenkins tonight. He buys scrap fast. Won't get you the full sum, but it's a start. I didn't hesitate. Done. I hitched the rusted machine to my truck and hauled it down the dark county road. Dust swirled in the headlights. At Jenkins' yard, sparks flew from cutting torches as men worked late. Jenkins himself, a squat man with grease on his hands, met me at the gate. What you want for it? He asked. Cash. Tonight. He circled the combine, kicked a tire, then shrugged. $3,000. It's worth 5. Maybe 10 years ago. 3's all I'll give. I slammed my fist against the hood. Every minute I argued was a minute lost. Fine. 3. He counted out the bills, crumpled and greasy. I stuffed them into my jacket and drove off, heart hammering. Back at the ranch, I gathered tools, saddles, anything of value. I made calls, quick and sharp. Most folks couldn't help. Some promised small amounts, enough to scrape together a few more bills. By midnight, I had maybe half of what I needed. Not enough. Not close. I sat on the porch, head in my hands. Rusty lay at my feet, whining softly. Can't let him win, I whispered. Not Hayes. Not the HOA. The crunch of gravel made me lift my head. Headlights cut across the yard. A pickup rolled to a stop. Mark climbed out, carrying a battered lockbox. Couldn't sleep, he said. Figured I'd bring this over. He set the box on the porch and opened it. Inside were neat stacks of cash, worn but solid. My chest tightened. Mark, no. That's your savings. He looked me dead in the eye. You think I like the HOA any more than you do? They buy that spring, they'll bleed us all dry. Consider this an investment. In you. I swallowed hard, fighting the lump in my throat. I'll pay you back. You'd better, he said with a crooked grin. We counted the cash under the porch light. Still short. Not by much, but enough. I stared at the last column of figures. My hand shook. There was only one thing left worth anything. The rifle passed down from my father, locked away for years. I stood, went inside, and returned with it. The walnut stock gleamed under the light. Mark's eyes widened. You sure? He asked. I nodded. It's the last piece I've got. If this doesn't buy the land, nothing will. We loaded into the truck and drove through the sleeping town to the pawn shop on Main. The old neon sign flickered as I knocked on the door. After a long pause, the owner, half asleep and grumpy, opened up. I don't usually deal at this hour, he muttered. You will tonight, I said, laying the rifle across the counter. His eyes softened. Fine weapon. Family piece. Yes. He tapped the stock, then sighed. I'll give you the rest you need. But you won't like it. I don't have to like it, I said. Just give it to me. He counted out the bills, crisp and final. I shoved them into my coat pocket. My hands trembled, but for the first time in days, I felt the weight shift. We walked back into the night. The streets were empty, the air cold. Mark clapped my shoulder. You've done it. Enough to match Hayes. Maybe even beat him. I looked down the road toward Reeves' house, a dark shape against the hills. Tomorrow it would all come to a head. Tomorrow the valley would change. But as we climbed into the truck, I noticed a shadow move in the alley across the street. A figure in a suit, watching us. Hayes. His face was hidden in the dark, but I knew that stance. Hands in pockets. Smug. Silent. He'd seen everything. The truck engine roared, and Mark pulled us away, but my stomach turned to stone. Hayes knew I had the money now. He wouldn't sit idle. He'd fight harder. Dirtier. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about buying land. It would be war. Chapter 9. The Showdown. Morning came sharp and cold. I barely slept, mind racing all night. The money sat heavy in my coat pocket, every bill earned with sweat, sacrifice, and blood. Today was the day. Mark drove me into town. Neither of us spoke much. The only sound was the truck's engine and Rusty whining softly in the back seat, restless. He felt it too. We pulled up outside Whitmore and Sons. The building looked the same as yesterday, brick walls, dusty windows, but it felt different, like a battlefield. I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, heart pounding. Hayes's black SUV was already there. He leaned against it, suit sharp, hair slicked, that smirk plastered across his face. Well, he said. Didn't think you'd actually scrape it together. I did. He chuckled low. Doesn't matter. Reeves is a practical man. He'll take the sure thing. My money, not your farmer's charity pile. I walked past him, jaw tight, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reply. Inside, Reeves sat behind the desk, looking older than before. His hands fiddled with a folded piece of paper. His eyes were tired. You're both here, he said. Good. Let's finish this. Hayes strode in first, tossing another thick envelope onto the desk. It landed with a thud. 50,000. Cash. Right here. Right now. I stepped forward, laid down my bundle. Same amount. Every cent honest money. Reeves' eyes darted between the two envelopes. His fingers twitched. Sweat beaded on his brow. Hayes leaned in. Mr. Reeves, you know me. I represent the future. Growth. Stability. This cowboy? He'll run that spring into the ground. He's sentimental. Emotional. I'm business. I cut in, voice sharp. He's lying. He'll drain the spring, pipe it to his lawns, and sell the valley back its own lifeblood. You know it. Reeves shifted uncomfortably. I don't care what happens after. I just need this burden gone. Hayes smiled, slow and venomous. Then make the smart choice. Take my cash. For a long moment, silence filled the room. I could hear the tick of the wall clock, each second heavier than the last. Finally, Reeves cleared his throat. I'll need to see proof both of you have the full amount. I nodded, opened my envelope, and spread the bills across the desk. Sweat trickled down my neck, but every dollar was there. Hayes did the same, but as Reeves started to count, something caught my eye. The top stacks were crisp. Too crisp. But underneath, nothing but folded newspaper. My stomach lurched. Hayes hadn't brought the full amount. He'd faked it. Stop, I said sharply. Reeves froze, startled. What? I pointed at Hayes's bundle. Check under the top layer. Hayes's smirk twitched. Don't waste time. It's all there. Reeves frowned, peeled back the top stack, then swore under his breath. His eyes shot up, furious. This is a trick. Hayes's mask cracked. His jaw tightened, eyes flashing with rage. It was enough to make you hesitate. Enough to scare him. He jabbed a finger at me. I stepped closer, fists clenched. You think you can cheat your way into this valley? Not today. Reeves shoved Hayes's fake envelope aside and turned to me. His voice shook, but his words were firm. Your money is real. Yours is the offer I'll take. For a moment, the room went dead silent. Then Hayes moved. Fast. Too fast. He lunged across the desk, grabbed Reeves's wrist. You'll regret this, Hayes hissed. I yanked him back, shoving him hard against the wall. Let go. Hayes's eyes burned into mine. You think this ends with a signature? You think owning that spring will save you? No. This is just the beginning. We glared at each other, chest to chest, rage sparking like fire. Finally, he straightened his suit, forced a smile, and stormed out. The slam of the door echoed like a gunshot. Reeves sat back down, shaken. He pulled the papers from his drawer, slid them across the desk. Sign here. It's yours. My hand hovered over the pen, heart pounding. At last, the spring, the water, the power, it was within my grasp. I signed. The deed was mine. Mark let out a breath. Rusty barked once, sharp, like he knew we'd won. But as I folded the paper and tucked it into my coat, I couldn't shake Hayes's words. This wasn't the end. The HOA still had their trench, their lawyers, their money, and now they had a reason to hate me more than ever. When I stepped outside, the SUV was gone. Only the dust hung in the air, swirling like smoke after a battle. But in my gut, I knew Hayes wasn't retreating. He was planning his counterattack. Chapter 10. The Counterattack. The deed sat heavy in my coat pocket all the way home. I had won. The spring was mine. No HOA trench, no committee vote, no slick suit could change that. But victory felt thin. Hayes's words haunted me. This is just the beginning. The first sign came 2 days later. I was repairing fence posts on the south line when Mark drove up fast, gravel spitting under his tires. He jumped out, waving papers. They hit us, he said, voice tight. What is it? An injunction. Court order. Says you can't touch the spring until a hearing. I took the papers, scanned them. Thick legal text, full of phrases meant to confuse. At the bottom, HOA letterhead. Hayes's name. They're claiming the spring belongs to the association, Mark said. Says your deed is invalid. I felt heat rising in my chest. Reeves sold it fair. It's mine. Mark shook his head. They've got lawyers. They'll drag this through every court in the county. Rusty barked from the truck bed, restless. He felt the storm too. That night, I spread the papers across the kitchen table. Mom sat with her arms crossed, face pale but firm. You knew they'd fight dirty, she said quietly. I nodded, but I didn't think they'd move this fast. The phone rang. I picked it up. Hayes's voice slithered through the line. How does it feel, cowboy? You got a piece of paper, sure, but paper burns. Lawyers don't. You tried to cheat, Reeves, I snapped, and you lost. He chuckled. No, son, I never lose. The HOA owns the board, the courts, the sheriff if I need him. You're one man with a dog. Tick-tock. That spring will be ours again. The line went dead. I stood there, hands shaking, rage boiling. 2 mornings later, the fight got physical. I rode out to check the spring, Rusty at my side. The land was quiet, the air cold. But as we crested the ridge, I froze. Men in neon vests. HOA contractors. They were driving stakes into the ground, hammering signs that read, Property of HOA. Trespassers will be prosecuted. My blood ran hot. This is mine, I muttered. Rusty growled low, hackles up. I rode straight down, dust kicking up. The men looked up, startled, but kept working. Get off my land, I barked. One of them, a heavy-set guy with sunglasses, barely glanced at me. Court order says it ain't yours. We're here on HOA business. I dismounted fast, grabbed one of the signs, ripped it out of the ground, and flung it. This land belongs to me. You set one more post, and you'll regret it. The man smirked. Careful. Sheriff's on our side. You push this, you'll be the one in cuffs. I stepped closer, fist tight. Rusty bared his teeth, snarling. For a second, no one moved. The men shifted uneasily, glancing at the dog. Finally, the one in sunglasses spat in the dirt. Fine. We'll be back with papers. They loaded their truck, drove off slow, dust trailing behind them. I stood there, chest heaving, the spring gurgling behind me. This wasn't just about water anymore. It was war. That evening, Mark showed up again, face grim. They called a special HOA meeting. Tomorrow night, Hayes is pulling the board together. Word is, they're voting to condemn your deed outright. Claim it's fraudulent. Mom's face hardened. They'll twist the whole town against us. I clench my fists. Then I'll be there. They won't do this in the dark. Mark nodded. Be ready. Hayes will make a show of it. I looked out the window. The sun was sinking, the horizon burning red. Rusty sat by the door, ears up, like he was waiting for the fight. I knew then, tomorrow wasn't just another meeting. It was the next battlefield, and Hayes would throw everything at me. If you love watching my videos, then make sure to subscribe and like my video.